Oh, yeah. We should have civilized warfare. That's what that's about. That's, Here we go. I'll let you read that while I get a drink. How are we doing today? I plan on waking up halfway through this talk, so let's hope it goes well. I'd like to start off with this picture because this shows you just the how far we've gone in actual talking about issues like cyber warfare or informational warfare. You can tell by the first part is this first one on the left is actually from the 90s from an American tabloid called like the National Enquirer, the Daily News, you know, where, you know, Bigfoot had my baby. It's like I've been abducted by UFOs. That was the one on the left, you know, very sensationalist with hackers can turn your home computer into a bomb. You know, this is going to generate a lot of fear, make people interested and be afraid about their security. Well, have we really advanced since then? Because now instead of a tabloid, instead of a disreputable news source, this is from July of 2009 from the Telegraph, UK. Terrorists could use internet to launch nuclear attack. Wow. Before they're going to kill my family, now they're taking out my city. It's like that's a problem. It's like, so we haven't really learned to figure out exactly what information warfare is. We've just learned how to sensationalize it more. So that's what we're going to try to go through. We're going to try to talk more about exactly what information warfare is and isn't. We're not going to talk about the actual techniques or tools. It's like we're going to talk a little bit more about the culture, about the people, about what's going on, and how information warfare is impacting our everyday lives. A little bit about me. I have two jobs. I have a night job where I'm the CIO of Strategy One Solutions. We're a pen testing consulting company. People pay me to come in and break their systems. I've also written a book. I've also been an expert witness in criminal and civil cases. You know, all the fun stuff. It's like my day job, I'm the AVP, Assistant Vice President of Information Security for a financial institution, where, you know, I monitor the firewalls, the IDS logs, I do incident response, all the boring stuff. Like I say that halfway in jest because we've got good defenses. You get some really exciting stories because you're able to actually track back the guys who have started doing the bad things. So basically what it comes down to is I have fun. Information security is about having fun. And if you're not having fun with your job and you're in information security because it's a career choice, you're in trouble. Because the other guy on the other side of the keyboard is having a blast. And you got to have that same kind of fun and that kind of passion and zeal on our side as the good guys and stuff, you know, because that's who you're going after. These guys aren't waking up and stuff, you know, at 8 o'clock in the morning going, oh, I got to go to work and stuff, you know, and steal 40 million credit cards. It's like, you know, they're getting out at noon and having a blast and checking their botnets and seeing how many people and victims they've acquired. So we got to start having that kind of fun as well. Well, let's start off with a little bit of history. It's like, you know, there's been a lot of talk about different kinds of hackers. You know, this person's a hacker, this person is a black hat hacker or a white hat hacker. A hacker is someone who thinks outside the box. So I like to go back to like one of the first hackers. I tell people if you want to learn how to cook, you go to France. If you want to learn how to paint, you go to Italy. If you want to learn how to conduct military strategy, you go to China. Because they've been doing it for quite a while. But back 500 BC, warfare was very simple. Okay? I take all my sharp pointy objects, you take all your sharp pointy objects, you run at each other. Whoever dies the most loses. Battle over. Very simple, very effective. Well, Sun Tzu was a hacker. He decided to think outside the box. He said, instead of just sending our guys, you know, just to kill each other, let's try to use the terrain. It's like he created one of the first buffer overflows. You know, it's like have the guys go into the small little valley so his troops could go in from the upside and overflow the numerous forces. So even though he had a lesser force, he was still able to accomplish the battle and win with a less superior force. It's buffer overflow. It's like he did social engineering. At your strongest, appear your weakest. At your weakest, appear your strongest. So he was good with social engineering. It's like he also did 0 days. It's like, he let off some 0 days. It's like he would send an assassin into the general's camp the night before the battle and kill him. So, it's like general's gone, the battle's over. So he was able to do 0 days as well. So it's like hacking is always been around. It's like it's just not always been with computers. And that's one of the reasons why I put this picture on there is I took that picture in São Paulo's airport in Brazil. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, is translated in hundreds and hundreds of languages, and it's read at Harvard as well as West Point. So military as well as business schools discuss this book. So if you haven't read it yet, it's a good book for you to read. Okay, we're still in the intro. So far, so good. I'm going to talk about some caveats about this. We're going to give you a little bit of history and geography lesson about some of the players that are involved, and then show how we're involved and what we can do about some of this stuff. And then hopefully we have a good discussion. One of the key things is that we have to have a discussion. If I'm just up here for an hour talking really fast and you're not understanding what I'm talking about, then we've wasted time. It's like we have to have a good discussion. It's like I'll be here afterwards, come up to me and talk and we can discuss. This is a 2-hour talk that I'm giving in 45 minutes. So it's like there's a lot more stuff for me to talk about and discuss it, and I have no problem doing that with any of you guys because we have to start getting this information out and sharing it and using those kind of dialogues and opening those up. So let's have a good discussion. And what that was also part of the caveat is, because we're in the caveat part now, I talk fast. I may use terms you're not familiar with. Please feel free to stop me or tell me to slow down. I will try to, because I know not everybody's like the native language is English, and when I'm giving this in America, they still tell me to slow down as well. So it's like it must be even worse here. So please let me know if you need that help, and it's like and you want me to do that, and I have no problem doing that. And hopefully you get most of the jokes because I do some of those every once in a while. Starting with this one, it's like the whole story of how cyber warfare started was very simple. I started writing a book. I finished writing one book, and it's a three-book series. And my second book is on cyber warfare. So I started doing research on cyber warfare. I started talking about exactly who's doing what, where is it going on, and I started forming all my opinions about, oh, this is how it happens. This is what it's about. And I even gave a talk in Oklahoma City on cyber warfare, and this was last October 2008, and I realized one important thing after I gave that talk. This isn't my stuff. This isn't my information. This is stuff that I read on the internet and created and then formed my opinion. So I got my passport for the very first time. It's like in October. In November, I was at XCon in Beijing. My first trip out of the country was to China. It's like going to a hacker conference there. My second trip was to Berlin for CCC. Then I went to Shanghai for SysCan, and then I went to back to Berlin for pH Neutral. And I also, in between there, I talked at a conference in Brazil. It's like I started going to these places, meeting some of the hackers, meeting some of the security professionals, meeting some of the law enforcement from these countries. And it just opened my eyes. It's like what the picture really was. And it's like, this is not what I'm hearing, and this is not what I'm seeing on the internet. It's like I'm seeing the glorified version of how bad it is. I'm not seeing the helplessness of, the Chinese police force and stuff, as they're trying to combat cybercrime. I'm not seeing that kind of aspect of it. So it's like it gave me a whole new perspective, and that's where this thing actually started to take form. And if you don't understand the pictures, it's like the one is, when you're reporting, you're nice and safe in the studio and stuff, It's like in investigating, you have to be out there in the rain and the wind and actually getting into where things are going on. You get a little bit more appreciation when you're investigating than when you're just reporting. Another key thing I want people to understand is that this is my perception. This is not the only perception, and that's one of the problems. People like to say, this is what I've discovered, this is it, this is how it is. You can't do that with informational warfare. The problem is not everybody sees all the facets. We can't. We're only looking at one facet, and I use the diamond as the perfect example, because if you take a diamond and you put it up to your eye, your view's distorted. You don't see anything clearly, do you? Because you're looking through just one facet. If you want to see the beauty of a diamond, you have to hold it away from you to see all of them, to actually see the actual beauty of a diamond. That's what this problem as well. It's like for us to actually understand informational warfare, we have to step back from our own perception, from our own little facet, and try to see it from someone else's point of view. See it from the other facets that are involved, not just from where you're standing. So I'm living currently right now in the middle of the U.S., and by the middle I mean like in the middle of nowhere in the U.S., and it's a very small community-driven location. And I'm sure everyone has that area where you're where everybody, you keep your doors unlocked, your neighbors, they know you, they know when you're away, your kids can go out and play after dark. It's like it's a very safe neighborhood, and everybody's trusting everybody. Well, there's a problem. You put your computer onto the internet. You now have new neighbors. Your neighbors are in China, the U.S., Canada, Paraguay, Antarctica. They're out there, and they don't always like you. So instead of just becoming a physical address on your location, you're now an IP address. You are a number on the internet. So now you're taking place in this battle. And the reason why I use that quote on the bottom, war is God's way of teaching Americans geography, from Ambrose Pierce, is because, quite simple, we need to learn a new way of geography. Because now the battleground is no longer somewhere on a physical location. It's in the boardroom. It's in the living room. It's in the dorm room. It's like wherever your computer's attached, you're now on the battlefield. It's like that's where it's moved from. It's no longer about boundaries. It's bandwidth, what you can access. People think, well, I don't have anything a hacker's going to want. It's like I'm just doing my MySpace and my Facebook and talking to my grandkids on the internet. You have a CPU, okay? You have a hard drive, and you have high-speed internet. You have resources. That's what you have to offer, and that's why it makes you such a good target. We're going to go through, these are some of the people that we're going to talk about. I tried to actually, piss off at least half of the industrialized nations when I give this talk, and I usually am pretty successful, unfortunately more so than I would like to be. But that's what we're going to talk about. I'm not talking from one perspective. I'm trying to do from just the observations that I've had. So we'll see how well that works. Let's start off with China. I'm not a sports guy in any country, but I was assured that this was a good representation of a Belgian player that is very good, very talented, but may upset people every once in a while and may have some controversy around him. It's like the American football player that I usually put on this slide. I don't know who he is either, so I think we're even. It's like, but I've heard that, and I actually saw the YouTube clip, by the way, so I know exactly why the controversy's there, and I think it should be there. But that's what China is right now. Everybody wants to blame China. If you're getting hacked, it's from China. Well, I'm getting hacked. It's like the Chinese are going into all our governments. And it's true, yes, it's going through there. But the whole problem is we're upset because, one, we don't like being hacked and stuff, and two, we don't like it when they're good at it. And stuff, especially if they're better than us at it. And so, and that's one of the problems that we're having is like China is very good at what they're doing. But one of the reasons why they're doing it is because of the Red Hacker Alliance. Now, in America, we have a thing called DC groups, and there's some here. It's like I know the DC 4420 in London, which are like a hacking group. And it's like, or like, think of it as hackerspaces. Hackerspace Belgium's having an issue. They're having a problem. What do? They go online to their network of other hackerspaces around the world and say, hey, we're having a problem. Can anybody help us and assist us? Well, then, Hackerspace Berlin, Hackerspace DC, they get involved and help try to overcome that problem. Well, the Red Hacker Alliance is almost exactly like that. It's a group of hacking websites and hacking groups within China. During certain times and places of tension and stuff, with the Chinese, the nationalist Chinese agenda and the foreign world and stuff, and they feel like they're being threatened or challenged, they will call up their forces, and even though there's little rivalries every once in a while between these groups, they will unify and they will attack that target with a single mind. So now instead of just having one or two people and stuff, or 100 groups after people after you, you have about a million, 1.2 coming at you for this. Another thing I want to get off right off the bat is a simple thing. We have to start understanding the culture. It's not just the technology. If you don't understand who you're fighting, if you don't understand why they're fighting, you're not going to be able to properly equip and prepare for any kind of altercations that are going to take place. And one of the key things right now that everybody should be aware of when you're talking about cyber warfare is the year 6521. How many people here are familiar with 6521? It's like, what it is two astrological calendars. The Chinese have two astrological calendars, okay? They're 30 years each. Those two astrological calendars combine to a 60-year cycle. So their years are based on 60-year cycles. Well, this is the beginning of a 6-year, the end of a 6-year cycle and the beginning of a new one. What happened 60 years ago? The ascension of Mao. October 1st was the rise of the Communist Party. So therefore, it's a cycle of change. Because there was a change 60 years ago, they're trying to wonder what's going to happen this 60 years. What's going to happen at this new cycle. Now, the problem with this cycle is that there's ill omens involved. Let's go off with 50 years ago, the 5. The Dalai Lama was, shall we say, asked to leave Tibet very forcefully by the Chinese, and that's one omen. 20 years ago, there was an incident in a square in Beijing, which got a lot of attention and a lot of press, and was considered another ill omen, Tiananmen Square. And then 10 years ago, which was the Falun Gong, was outlawed. All that has happened in the year the 9. It's like in 49, it's like then with 50, and then with 20 and 10, it's all this year. All those events have occurred this year. So when you think about Green Dam software being put out on the computers right now, when you think about them closing down Facebook and Twitter right now, are you looking at offensive maneuvers from the Chinese government to tighten down their citizens, or them preparing for something because they're upset or worried about what the next cycle is going to bring? Another thing is you see a lot less of individual hacking, a lot less of spectator hacking from China right now. And I talked to them when I was in Shanghai. I talked to some, and that's the whole reason is because they're just waiting. They're still coding. They're still developing exploits. Okay, they're still getting their weapons ready. They're just waiting till next year. So if you think you're getting a lot of attacks right now, wait till the new stuff comes out after the next cycle starts, and it's safe to start hacking again. Another thing is, this picture on the left, this is one of the worst parts. It's like this picture on the left, that's not China. That is not China. The picture on the right is China. That's like saying, I'm an American, so I'm just America. It's like, I just come from America. Well, in America, we have, the East Coast, West Coast rivalries. It's like you have, are you from the North? Are you from the South? Are you Republican? Are you Democrat? There's all these different ties and lines and feuds, It's like Tupac, Biggie. It's like there's all kinds of feuds going on in the U.S. all the time. But the whole thing is, it's a multi-mixture. The same thing with China. We can't just put one brush and say, that's China. China's made up of multiple provinces. They speak multiple languages, and they have multiple cultures. And another key fact that a lot of people don't realize is when you talk about the hacking culture, Shanghai hackers love hacking Beijing hackers. They are at constant war with each other. Shanghai hackers will compromise Beijing hackers, get access to their botnets, then they will lease them to other countries and criminal organizations to launch their attacks, so it comes from China. Because everybody knows the attacks always come from China. So you have a foreign nation state or a foreign criminal organization launching their attacks from compromised, victimized botnets coming from like the Beijing hackers when it's the Shanghai hackers who are controlling them. And the Beijing hackers are doing the same thing. It's mostly Shanghai, I think, because the Beijing hackers are a lot more subdued. It's like because they're so close to the seat of power. It's like it's a lot more oppressive and stuff. Where they're at. So you can tell by their hacking methods. Also, they're very cautious, very very tight, controlled method. It's like we'll go with that. And the Shanghai hackers are more westernized, more aggressive, more willing to take chances because they're further down in the south. And so you see them being more aggressive in their attacks to the Beijing hackers. But there is a rivalry. There is a constant back and forth between those two groups. It's not just coming from the Chinese government or just one single entity. They hack themselves. Now, a little bit of history. The U.S. is just now starting into cyber warfare and getting involved in it, and they've had some instances with it before, but the Chinese have been doing it for a lot longer. And that's the reason why their organization skills are where they're at now, is because they started back in '97 with the formation of the Green Army, founded by Goodwell. 1998 was the anti-Chinese riots in Indonesia. That provided the catalyst. What happened was Chinese nationals were being attacked for their nationality, and so that formed the Red Hacker Alliance. 2000, the Honker Union of China was founded by Lion. China Eagle, who's Round Tao, was founded China Eagle. Java File is still around also. It was founded by Kulswell and Belong. A lot of people remember 2001 for a specific date. Well, there was another date in 2001, April of 2001. U.S. Navy plane collided with a Chinese jet fighter off the coast of China. The Chinese fighter pilot died. The Navy personnel were guests of the Chinese government for a couple of weeks. That started a spate of attacks from American hackers attacking the Chinese websites demanding the release. Well, that also formed the Red Hacker Alliance to create a 1,000-page website defacement on the U.S. to sort of tell them to back off. So that's when we started understanding exactly what the Chinese were doing. There's been other ones with the was it Georgia? No, it was. I'm trying to figure out where it was. Yes, it's like with the embassy in Yugoslavia. It's also caused a problem with the Chinese hackers, but the main one was 2001 when they started doing the web defacement. That started getting the involvement of the press and started getting more attention. Now they've been having a problem since then, and the one impediment to their hacking ability and to their ability to actually carry out these attacks was very simple: English. The commands, the tools, the instructions are all in English, and they were not familiar with it, or they were not able to actually get the right commands to translate them properly to launch these attacks. Well, that stopped in 2005. The UK government discovered that with the Great Pigeon Trojan in their mail system. The Chinese that was one of the first Chinese-made Trojans, and they perfected it and have done better at translating other programs into original Chinese. So actually, even more people now can use these tools and launch these attacks. Because we have to understand that a lot of these tools are getting more automated. I tell people not every hacker in China is an uber elite, able to do shell code from the get-go. Some of these hackers are just ones that just go down. They're just like our equivalent of script kiddies. They just get and run a program or know how to click a button and just try to muddle through. But the thing is, it's the numbers. If I get shot with a BB gun or a little pellet gun, it's going to sting. I'm going to get upset and I'm going to get mad. You shoot me with 1 million of those at one time, okay, I'm gone. It's like, so we have to understand, it's not just how effective the tool is, it's the sheer volume that we're dealing with here. And when you've got 1 million, or one statistic say 1.2 million hackers in China that are doing these kind of attacks, then the odds are against you. Another thing that I always find interesting, especially when I'm giving this talk in another country, is where I go to the point where I say, I'm a patriot. I love my country. It's like, and saying you're a patriot from America in another country, it's a little awkward sometimes. But it's a fact. But if that's a fact, and if that's okay, then why can't we just also acknowledge the fact that Chinese are patriots? That the Chinese, a lot of the Chinese hackers, are patriots to their country. They were born in a society where as soon as they're ready to start being educated, they're taught about their history. They have a civilization that goes back thousands of years. They're taught to be acknowledge the fact that they are descendants of emperors and of kingdoms. And now, with the last 60 years, They're part of the Communist Party. They're part of the collective. It's a very collective mindset. So when they feel like people from the West, well-meaning or not, start talking about the Chinese and start talking about what's being done wrong, they don't separate the government from themselves. So when you attack the Chinese policies or the human rights violations, you're attacking China. You're attacking themselves personally. And that's how they take that. They will attack their government. They will protest their government. One of the biggest ones recently was the milk deaths that caused the infant formula that poisoned a lot of infants in China. The company's website was defaced. There was demands for the manager's execution, which actually I did think was carried out. It's like, so, I mean, they'd actually went out and went after them for that. So they will attack within themselves, you know, but as long as it's not the West driving it. It's like they have to have that anonymity. They have to have that solidarity that it's them doing it, not being told from someone else. One of the things the West has been very good at exporting capitalism and movies. So that's taken effect. The Chinese have gotten very good at realizing they can get paid for this. They can get money. And one of the best examples was 2008. A company in India lost a major contract. They were underbid just enough by a Chinese company. It wasn't until 2 months later that they realized that there was Trojans on the India systems showing the Chinese company exactly what they needed to bid to win the contract. So corporate espionage at its finest, and trust me, there's, you know, certain countries attending and stuff, you know, that can't really talk too much about corporate espionage backed by the government. That's something that we all do around the world. We involve our government with corporate espionage. So but they do that well, and they do it a lot. Let's get into this part. I have to drink a little drink right here. I'm allergic to polonium, so I'm making sure I'm drinking Pepsi, not tea. I always get a little nervous when I'm talking about the Russians. But I have to tell you, they're honest. That's one of the things I like about the Russians the most, is that they're like totally upfront. Yes, we have cyber warfare. It's the 5th division of the cyber army. Their military budget's 40 billion USD for the military. Their global rating of cyber capabilities is tied at number 4. But what gets me is they say their cyber warfare budget's 127 million for offensive capabilities. 127 million. If anybody in here works for the government, and I'm sure some people do, since it's a cyber warfare talk, we all know that's like, at least, you know, when you round it up to the actual off books, it's about 2 billion. It's like there's a difference between what's on the books and what's off the books. So they've got a lot of money to throw at cyber warfare. Some of the toys they get to play with are really nice and scary. Large advanced botnets for DDoSs and espionage. I wonder if they've used that recently. Electromagnetic pulse weapons, non-nuclear, thank goodness. They also do wireless data communication capabilities for jamming, because once again, it's about exchanging information. It's getting the information out there or keeping it from getting out there. Also, their cyber force size is 7,300. Once again, it's on books. Let's round up to 10,000. They're pretty well equipped. They're good at what they're doing, and they're learning from it. But one of the key things is, if I've got, say I'm a country, just any country that's got like over, you know, a 2 billion budget for cyber warfare, and I want to go and try to attack with some really cool tools that I have, how do I go about that? How do I try to attack a target that may be too big for me to attack right now? And also, I'd be more interested in attacking like 5 to 10 years from now. But no one that would notice. You know, a country that would go and say do all their voting online, who would do all their business online, who would be connected through the internet, who would have a lot of high-tech, high-speed capabilities. But then also, I would have to get a country and stuff, you know, that would be like sort of small that people wouldn't really take offense to too much. But that's the way I'd want to do it. Well, let's talk. Oh, by the way, just to let you know, the U.S. is not there yet, but Estonia is really good at being with their cyber capabilities. They do all their voting online. They do all their business and electronic communications online. They're very well connected. The leader of their country has said that the internet is a basic human right. Some say they're where the United States is going to be 5 to 10 years from now. And I'm sure that's coincidence, though, so we'll keep going. And also one of the things is, like, you can't have a cyber warfare talk without mentioning Estonia at least once. So, Here's my my mention of Estonia. But it was also one of the things that we have to understand is, yes, there was a statute that was moved. That caused a catalyst, but it also caused an opportunity to start using some tools maybe. Start trying to see exactly what we can get out of the chest and how effective it can be. And I think that was one of the things that we learned, and that's also when the press started realizing, cyber warfare is a good topic. Let's start, writing about cyber warfare. And that started the trend, was in 2007. But it's, like I said, it's been happening before then, and it's still happening now. It's just now we're taking more notice of it. I believe that Estonia was to beta 1.0. It was just trying to figure out exactly what can happen, what can be done. When you want to really get into it, you go to Georgia. Georgia was the second beta, because that's where you actually see, in the charts, you see the kinetic attacks and the non-kinetic attacks coordinated simultaneously. As a radio station's tower is being shot by a tank, the distributed denial service is taking out that website. They're changing out the information. Because it doesn't matter when you're talking about warfare, not cyber warfare. Cyber warfare is not warfare as unto itself. We have air war, we have land war, we have sea war, we have cyber war. It's just another theater in this ongoing battles that we're doing. So it's not just about body count. That isn't what just wins a war. It's information. Can you control the information? Can you stop your enemy from getting the information? Can you get your enemy's information to yourselves and manipulate it somehow? That's where the internet's taking its shape and it's taking its power from. So where's the next topic? And another thing is, people ask me, it's like when I talk about this and I talk about Georgia and Estonia, they're like, do you really think Russia would do that? Do you really think they would have the audacity to try to launch those kind of attacks without fearing the repercussions? And I don't have to tell anybody here in Europe and stuff, it's like, got gas? Because, quite frankly, that's what occurred. It's like a country shutting off the gas pipelines to Europe. Were there really a big fear of repercussions at that point? Was there really a way of people thinking, I don't want to make everybody angry, maybe we shouldn't do it? No, they did it because they could. And when you have the abilities and you have the tools to do those kind of things, sometimes people do them and they test them. So let's go on to our next section. This is my don't fault with me card. And I say that in actually seriousness because, once again, we have to go back to the facet analogy. Too many times in the West, we look at one facet of something. And especially in America, we like to look at that one facet of Islam and say, well, that's what it is, a jihadist. I wouldn't like everybody around the world to look at one facet of my culture and say, that's what it is, especially if it's daytime television. It's like, I don't want that to be the TV show Cops is not what all America is about. There's different nuances. So that's one of the things we have to understand. This is actually a quote from the Quran. They mention Jesus Christ with respect and reverence. You would not believe how many people are surprised and amazed at that fact because they've never taken the time to read the Quran. They just label it one thing, they put their little facet on it, and go to the next thing. So like I said, we don't want to go into the thing where we're just studying on one facet, but unfortunately this is a cyber warfare talk, so we have to narrow our focus to that one little facet, and that is on cyber jihadist. One of the things that I want to make sure that we dissuade and stuff, is yes, though the jihadists are doing cybercrime, they're starting to get into the funding, most of cyber jihadism, what they use the internet for are three basic tools: recruitment, propaganda, and communication. That's it. If your whole basis of your needs are recruitment, propaganda, and communication, how would you destroy the very fabric of what you need to do those things? So I don't really see a lot of DDoSs going on that are going to happen and stuff, over the internet through cyber jihadists. It's like, I think what they're using it for are those three basic things. And they're pretty good at they have some hacker teams. It's not to say that they don't have hacker teams. They have their own darknet. They have their own VPN systems for communication. There was just a recent story about them having to take down one of their websites because they realized it was compromised, and they sent that email out to everybody saying, hey, well, to everybody that was in the forums, including the people that were actually monitoring it, saying, hey, we have to shut this down. We're opening up a new branch eventually. So that's where they use this. It's not just about destroying something. A lot of people talk about like, well, where else is the cybercrime? Where else is cyber warfare going? Is it all just related to cybercrime? And not really. It's like in South America, you see mostly community-based hacking. You see hacking, you see cybercrime, but in Brazil, hacking is not illegal. So therefore, there's just mostly they're hacking each other and stealing money from within their own banking system. So that's good for the rest of the world, but not for them. Eastern Europe. When I talked about exporting movies, the U.S. Exported some movies like Godfather and Goodfellas and Scarface, and a lot of the United States we consider that entertainment. And so, unfortunately, some people in Eastern Europe decided to use that as a training video, and they've actually now and stuff. Their criminal organizations have moved online. They'll threaten to whack your website. They'll hold your data for ransom. Drive-by malware. It's like, and they also do physical attacks as well. So I'm going to stop at that. Also, crime does not always equal cyber warfare. Usually, but one of the things you have to look again is if I can deprive your side of something, even if I don't benefit from it, then I'm winning. I've actually created a victory. In China, 2 hackers in 2002 stole money online. They transferred money from one account to another account. They were caught. The money was transferred back to the original victim. No money lost. Everybody's happy. Both hackers executed. If you hack in China, you die. If you hack outside of China, no. We are going to fine you if we catch you the next 30 times doing that. You will get in serious trouble. So if you're a hacker in China and there's a bullet or an admonishment, where am I going to be attacking? Because Chinese government cannot control 1.2 hackers, no matter how much we want to put on their ranks or how good they are. I talked to one of the people in the Shanghai Cyber Squad in Beijing, and I almost felt sorry for the dude because he was talking about how he's overwhelmed with cybercrime, and it's like, and how they're trying to use the universities to get assistance from them to help them with these cases. And the problem is universities want money or compensation, and probably half the staff are the ones responsible for the attacks in the first place. So the Chinese would rather have the world think they are responsible for these attacks than to lose face and realize that they can't control it. So that's another aspect that sometimes we overlook. It's like the basic culture of how the Chinese operate and how important keeping face is when we label these attacks coming from China. Also, a lot of other countries, not just the Chinese, have a rule where hacking in your country is illegal. Hacking outside of your country is not. Let's get to the U.S. U.S. is starting to understand cyber warfare. It's like it's taken a lot of painful lessons. Everyone likes to talk about Titan Rain. It's like there's been a lot of others, I'm sure. I'm not very familiar with it. The reason why I have this picture is because of a 2004 Pentagon report where they said that it is sometimes okay through the tactics to be able to use the options that are on the table for a cyber attack can go to the physical world up to a nuclear strike. You DDoS me, I nuke a city. I put malware on your machine, you send a battalion. I send you spam, you get a B-50. Well, actually, the spam thing would be sort of justifiable. But still, it's like that shows how the U.S. doesn't really understand this conflict yet. They're still in development. They don't understand the process. You cannot use tactical nukes because someone's launching an attack on your computers. That's just really, yes. Once again, my aspect, it's not worth nuking the city. It's like, because one of the key things, and one of the things that we're going to discuss right now, let's go straight to it then, is the biggest problem we have. How do you tell? The July 4th attacks of this year, where there was a distributed denial of service on South Korea and the United States, therefore automatically we have to say, oh, it was the North Koreans. No, it's actually some of the stuff's already being tracked back to the UK, and that still doesn't mean that it was the UK that did it. We don't know. There's so much anonymity involved in these attacks, you can't really tell where the attack has originally come from. How do you can pinpoint it that you feel good enough that you can nuke and destroy all the life in a 100-mile radius and stuff, on your IP address? Because, the bad guys aren't going to do Mac spoofing or anything, right? It's like they're going to play fair. So, and that's one of the problems, that we have to understand we don't know where these things are coming from. It's like that's one of the biggest weapons that these attacks they have on their side, the anonymity. You don't know where the attack. Like I've already told you, people will actually rent out platforms in China. It is a great business to rent out those attacks so you can launch the attacks coming from there. That's not from the Chinese government. That's from some guy and stuff, who wants to make an extra, 300 yuan by doing this so he can support his gaming habit. Also, I don't like to just, upset one major nation. I like to upset as many as I can. So let's understand, within the next it's not the next 5 to 10 years that every industrialized nation is going to have a cyber warfare unit, okay? Every industrialized nation by now has some form of cyber warfare unit. All the cool kids are doing it. We're all involved in that. From the UK's Whitehall that's just now starting up and being public about it, to the Germans creating theirs. The Israelis, it's like in the US you don't really talk about the Israeli Shin Bet very much, but I'll tell you right now, in the 1990s, the Pinjalo petroleum station north of Tel Aviv, they did a pen test there, and they realized very quickly, yeah, we need a cyber warfare unit. They also, when you talk about actually using these tools, 2007, Syrian airstrike, Israelis have developed and stuff, and very familiar with cyber warfare. So are a lot of other nations, and including the U.S. It's like they're getting there. They're trying to evolve these. We're still trying to figure out the rules, but one of the biggest problems with these attacks is we're trying to learn with modern-day warfare. We're putting it in the box of tanks and missiles and planes. You cannot fight next year's war with last year's methodology, especially when we're not talking about development of a plane that takes years. We're talking about malware that takes minutes. Vulnerabilities that are like released on Patch Tuesday, there's exploit code that following Wednesday. So we have to learn more. We have to adapt to what's going on. We can't keep saying this is what cyber warfare is or isn't. This is what informational warfare is or isn't. It's always constantly evolving and adapting, and we have to start adapting to it, not trying to put it in a box and say this is what it is, and this is how it's going to be dealt with. When you put it in the box, you put yourself in a losing proposition, because the other guy doesn't even see the box. He's just going to keep attacking the way he attacks. So what can we do? Well, we have to start understanding. We have to start creating a dialogue. That's what this presentation is about. We have to start discussing this amongst ourselves. And hopefully we will be able to do that. Hopefully we'll be able to start doing dialogues. Hopefully this will help kickstart some discussions between not just me and you, but also from your coworkers and people that you talk to, and start developing maybe we are approaching these attacks differently. Maybe we need to start understanding more about the culture of the people than just the black and white issue of, oh, the hack came from here, so therefore they're out to get us. Let's respond with equal force. I'm done. No more tricks, sorry. I answered everything y'all needed to know. Awesome. Oh, question?
You spoke about the problems that are present currently, but what could be a good thing for a country or so to react on this problem that is not only present in the government itself, but also in all the companies? In the US, they spoke sometime about kind of extra legislation, etc.
One of the key things, and that's a good point, is talking about this. The way that we're talking, the businesses are well as the ones being attacked, not just the government. And the way I look at it is the castle and moat strategy. instead of finding ways to go and retaliate and attack the other guys, we need to start understanding how we can do better tracing, better defenses, better capabilities to actually protect our assets, protect our infrastructure. Okay? Worry about, the nukes later. It's like start protecting your infrastructure so it doesn't get attacked in the first place. Start maybe if you're running a national power grid, maybe it's time to move off of Windows 98 maybe. Okay? It's like start developing that. Start developing that infrastructure and start defending yourself and creating that. It's just, the way you have to look at it is the hostile seas. It's like if everything is hostile and you accept that fact, that everything outside of your control is out to get you, which is the way I usually live. It's like I'm not paranoid, they are out to get me, is you protect yourself. You protect your environment, and then once your environment's protected and the other guy's protecting his environment, then you create that safe haven. So that's one of the things we have to start doing. It's like start being able to actually do better methodologies of tracing so we can start seeing who's responsible for these attacks, and then also get better inward in protecting our own infrastructure and protecting our own networks, because they're not going to help us with that except for by showing and exposing our weaknesses, which is also helpful but, very costly. Oh, there's one right.
Very much. This is a little bit off the wall. You mentioned universities earlier, and I work at a university. There may be a few other people here who do. You suggested that perhaps a lot of university people are starting these attacks, and that universities should be perhaps involved in some way. I wanted to make a couple of points and then get your opinion. We do teach information security, and my university in Australia has a whole program. We teach digital forensics. So we teach a lot of our students how to hack as well as how to respond to hacks. It is a problem, and we try to put a really ethical approach on it. We have our students sign confidentiality agreements essentially to try to get the point across that this is stuff that's important to keep to themselves, not to be telling their friends about at parties and so on, and that they have to take a professional approach. Speaking myself personally as an academic, I do get calls from governments and businesses and lawyers to ask if I would assist in problems. One of the first things I've learned to do is tell them what my hourly rate is in the first conversation. And also, they don't seem to realize that I have a full-time job. I put in more than 60 hours a week, and I need my institution's permission to do some contract work on the side. So there are real issues here. So that's my spin from a university point of view. I'd like to get your spin on how you think universities might be involved, might play a role, and how we could do this properly. Thanks.
Well, a couple of things. Well, first of all, with the university, you have to look at the architecture. You have to look at the environment. The environment in the university is open. It's very open. We're exchanging ideas. We're not trying to narrow you down. It's like your network's open. You're exploring. You can use the resources the way that you see fit. Some universities have problems with the IDSs, or you can be able to track back. It all depends on the university. But it is an open environment. And also, when you teach hacking, when you teach tools and stuff, when you're going to that level, I look at it this way. We teach young people. We teach 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds, and so it's like, this is how you drive, this is the speed limit, this is proper procedures when you're out on the road. And as soon as you get that driver's license, how many are actually going, yes, the steering wheel, this is where my hand should be, make sure I do my proper levering? No, you want to go out drag racing. You want to go out and you're good. It doesn't matter if it's the technology, it's not the technology. Once again, it goes back to the person. And it also goes back to the culture, and it also goes back to the age. It's like, so universities, like, there's a lot more exploring going on. It's like, it's harmless fun to go and try to take out a friend's computer system. Oops, I actually took down the whole lab network, but I was just playing. So it's okay. Also, they're victims. When I say a lot of these attacks are coming from universities, it doesn't mean always that the university, the person there is the one that's responsible for it. You've got an open network, so it's ripe for attack. Remember, I'm a hacker and stuff, and I want to commit a crime, but yeah, I want to do that. I don't want to get caught. So what do? I launch the attack from someone else's compromised machine. I want them, the one being attacked. I want them the police to go after, not me. I don't want it being traced back to me. So that's another problem with the universities. They're they've got new students that come in. They don't know about proper network security. They've got their systems open. They're running your P2P software and stuff, and their system's just rife for attack. So I can launch my attacks from them, and it looks like it's coming from the university. So that's the problem with the university. It's not that everybody is evil and they're attacking from it. It's just that it's a very open environment, so therefore it's a rich target for the attackers to blend into that environment. Yes?
Two questions. First of all, India, do they have any live, active community? After all, they're quite a big country. And I seem to, every time I hear about hacking, I hear Russian, I hear Chinese. Don't hear anything about India. What's the culture over there? Do you know?
Oh, yes. Actually, Aditya Sood is from India, and he's going to be speaking at ExcaliburCon in November on hacking and web application exploitation. It's like, yes, they have a good environment. I can't mention all the countries that are involved in cyber warfare. I try to get the ones that everybody wants to hear about and stuff, like the highlights to the big stars. But honestly, Estonia's got a cyber warfare program. The U.S. has got Canada. Who wants to attack Canada? Okay, but I guarantee you they got a cyber warfare program. But I mean, everybody's doing this. It's like every country and stuff, is developing that and getting ready for it.
Okay, second question. As you describe it, it's sort of it becomes cyber warfare. Eventually, it's a global problem. It takes away the boundaries of countries. Right. Now, I know that today, based on my knowledge, the way that the world is acting in is only on a criminal level. Meaning, right. You have cooperation between Interpol, which is, by the way, works really hard, really bad the last time I heard about it. But do you know if there's any UN initiatives to try to handle this in a more international way? Because this is eventually, as we said, it's a global problem.
Yeah, it is a difficult problem, and one of the key things is back to the anonymity. When a guy in his basement can have control over 10,000 bots or 100,000, he's a general. He's got access to his army. He's he's one of the big boys now. And it's not just governments that can have these kind of resources anymore. It's individuals. So right now they're still trying to figure out exactly how to approach this. And so they're starting off from the criminal because they're originally going after criminals, just small-time players, people that are involved in it. But once again, it's forming. I tell people we protect our food supply, we protect our trade routes, we protect our borders. Why not our bandwidth? When so much of our economy, so much of our nations and stuff are now built on the internet and stuff, it's just a natural extension. It's not something that is outside the box thinking. It's just a natural progression of what we're doing. But we're just now in the form of it. Just when they started having to understand how to do, intercontinental wars, it's like it took development and figuring out exactly where we're going to get involved in it, where these attacks are going to take place. When do we say, okay, we're going to assist with this help? Georgia was a good example of assistance from other countries and stuff, trying to help with that. But still, there's more involvement that has to be done. There still has to be. It's not legislation. It's not going to be legislation. It's going to be awareness. It's going to be actual getting the people that are actually doing the technology and using technology, defensive and offensive, to start communicating. And of course, and I think actually I give hackers more credit and stuff, than politicians, to actually trying to work together and try to create that technology. So, I mean, the people in this room are the perfect examples. You are doing the right thing. You're trying to get the information. You're trying to actually see what's going on and how to exchange it. You may not have agreed, I'm sure by some of the looks, you didn't agree with hardly any of the stuff I said, but you're here, and that's to your credit. It's like you're trying to hear what the other side has to say. You're trying to hear some of the other opinions, and that's a good thing.
Small question, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You mentioned we should start protecting ourselves better. Seems to me like a mission impossible, because I've been hearing about, let's say, for instance, IPv6 for years, almost more than 20 years, which should allow to have a better tracing, etc. I've been hearing about, indeed, perhaps people starting to create a kind of better protected, more closed Internet 2 or Internet whatever X. The point is, apparently people are not doing this, or apparently people are saying, well, if we do our part, the other parties are not doing their part, so what the heck, etc. So to an extent, yes, I can understand when you say you should check away your Windows 98 if you're still running your electric power net on it, fine. But it seems to me that most people are something like teenagers. That is, they have a behavior with regard to security that's completely irresponsible, they're completely and absolutely invulnerable, and it's always the responsibility of somebody else. So if you say, start protecting yourself better, I would say, well, good luck to you.
Well, first of all, with IPv6, it's like, yeah, it's been around for a while, but I'm hoping it's just like fashion and stuff. It just takes a while for it to, come in style. So hopefully that will be progressing. On the second part of it, though, in all seriousness, and I've said this many times, individual security. That's what starts. That's where security. This is where international conflict starts at home. If you can run antivirus on your machine, if your parents run antivirus on their machine, if you get your cousins and your nephews and your nieces to run antivirus and personal firewalls and patch their systems, that stops the spread. That starts the protection. Because remember, I'm not launching my attack from the country that I'm coming from. It's usually from within the country. We have to start letting the users know. We have to start security awareness. Once again, this is not a layer 5 problem all the time. Sometimes it's going to go to layer 7 and layer 8, and layer 8 is the human layer, where we start educating the populace. It's like, patch your machines. People keep wanting to believe that they're not part of it. They want to believe that this doesn't have anything to do with them. And I tell people, if you're connected on the internet, you're a part of it. You're in the battle. Protect your machines. Patch your machines, run firewall, run antivirus. I don't care which one. I don't care what kind of firewall. It's like, put something out there. Well, besides, don't use the Windows firewall. But I mean, just get a personal firewall out there, get a hardware firewall out there, and start protecting your connections. Because when you start protecting your connections, you help start protecting everybody else on the internet. And that's what we have to start. It's a universal thing. Are we going to ever come to utopia? No. It's like, I don't ever think I'm going to get my, rainbow-flavored ice cream served by my unicorn. But I really do believe that if we start getting enough people aware of it and informed of it, we can mitigate some of these attacks and mitigate some of the severity of our infrastructure based on that. And with the government and stuff, you can migrate from Windows 98. Okay, that can happen. It's like, that just takes the money. That's not logistics. That's not just the technology. That's just upgrading. And that's something that needs to be done.
Time for the last question.
Like I said, I'll be here all day, so if you want to discuss offline and you have other questions, that's fine.
One more question.
Yes.
You talk about personal firewalls and so on, but we're moving from the internet now to the Internet of Things, where you have internet in your fridge, and I don't know what they're talking about, internet in your car, which will talk to the car behind you for whatever. So, I don't know.
Yeah, more and more mobile devices are being connected and interconnected and to the internet, but the problem is it's still going to go to resources, CPU power, hard drive space, and bandwidth. Those devices don't carry enough bandwidth at this time to be that much of a threat. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe. But right now, what we need to start worrying about is securing the stuff that we can, which are readily available, which are those kind of tools, the firewalls and antivirus. Then we're going to have to start worrying about, our phones, attacking our systems and coming after us. But for right now, we just need to get our desktops and our laptops protected, and then go from worrying about these other devices, because that is a threat. There is just like there's the Bluetooth whispering, where you can actually pick up conversations in other cars as they go by. Those kind of tools are out there already. They do exist, and they're being targeted. So are mobile devices. Those are actual valid attack points. But in the cyber warfare realm, and where it's like where everybody's trying to actually, nation states, they're not after the phone just yet. They're still working on the machines and developing the attack platforms there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.